When you're contesting your last couple red light camera tickets, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
Casey.
And Jesse.
Jesse had a lot of fun last week, so he decided to try it again. How's everybody else doing?
Eyeballing cousin Jesse over there in the corner, hoping he's not going to screw the whole series over like that guy in the Brady Bunch.
Cousin Jesse? I didn't realize you two were related.
What?
Well, remember that kid? I don't know if you guys are up on your Brady Bunch lore, but when the kids started getting older, the people that had the Brady Bunch said, well, we need a younger kid. So they brought in an unbeknownst known cousin, and I forget the kid's name, and he came in and he sank the show.
See, you said Cousin Jesse. My first thought was John Stamos.
Yeah, I was thinking
God.
Uncle Jesse from Full House. Yeah, that's where my brain.
That's Uncle Jesse.
We're on
Right.
opposite ends of the spectrum of cool right there, man. Come
Yeah.
on.
It's not my fault you brought up bad references. Come on.
I brought up a dated reference that was haphazard because I didn't have the names.
I mean, I used to watch Brady Bunch. I get that, but I just don't remember the cousin.
You know, he had a blonde bowl haircut and glasses.
I remember him barely from Nick at Night.
Yeah.
Even as a child, I didn't care. That was a strange house, in my opinion.
Well, he was loathed by people that actually watched the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
I'm actually, of course, stalling for time because I'm looking up the brat's name.
It's apparently going really well.
Where is he?
How about some quality stalling? Hey, Joanna, I hear you're getting ready to take a trip this week.
Yes, ask me where to.
Where are you going, Joanna?
Anaheim, California for the Power Morphicon.
Well, gee golly whiz, that sounds exciting.
It is.
See, that's
Much
quality.
more exciting than cousin Oliver.
Yeah, see, that's quality stalling right there. You just learned an object lesson. Seriously, Joanna, how is the trip looking for you?
We're actually scheduling out, and I do this for every convention that I go to. As soon as they post the photos, the photo op schedule, and the panel schedule, we look at the panels, see where we can fit in the photo ops, kind of prioritize. Boom Studios and Hasbro are both having a huge booth there, which I'm excited. We saw the floor plan, we kind of mapped everything out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people who strategizes, conventions, so that at least it's kind of, what do you call it?
Jesse.
Try to be efficient about movement and planning.
Jesse, this sounds like a lady that needs to go to San Diego.
I think I would be so overloaded. I think my brain would melt out of my ears or something.
No, you will lose your mind.
Wow, it's like the two of you have decided it's already like the end of a Kubrick film.
It is.
I think it's much easier than that. Although I just have this image of Joanna, like as soon as the announcements were made for Power Morphicon, she immediately takes out a pen and starts writing onto the schedule, and then her husband just says, Joe, please stop that. Why? That's an iPad.
I have a notebook, and it actually has other stops that we're planning to do in Anaheim. There's also a cool field trip that they're taking. The building that is used as the command center in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series is actually an observatory.
Yeah,
and
I get that.
so they're taking a field trip, like on a bus, a few places around the city, and then out to the observatory where there's going to be photo ops with Jason the Red Ranger. His actor's name is Austin St. John.
Yeah.
Right. And so, the uber nerds that we are, we're going to go do that. And I mean, this is actually our honeymoon trip. So we're like uber nerds.
Well, that's good, but have you ever tried Lyft?
Yeah. It's about the same.
I was expecting an audio slap or something.
You go on the Power Morphicon, and this is your home, and the only thing I think of is some colorful cosplay right now.
He actually has a Red Ranger costume he's taking.
I have to shut my mouth because Jesse brought up colorful cosplay and a honeymoon, and my brain just went to a completely different direction.
I went there. I went there.
I'm dressing up as Rita. Some conflict, some power shifts going on.
Oh my god.
If I happen to stop by to meet somebody and you show up in a Madonna bra, I will lose my goddamn mind.
No, I don't have space in my suitcase for it.
You need to make space. That's where you put your socks when you're putting your suitcase together.
Yeah.
Jesse, how are you doing?
Oh,
And I gotta warn you, you gotta top that story. I mean, geez.
I'm sorry, I cannot top that. I'm just that boring. I just spent time watching Voltron and went out playing Pokemon Go. That's all.
Voltron's awesome.
Yes.
Oh God, I lost about half an inch on my waist over the course of Saturday.
Cool.
I went for my first pro wrestling lesson on in Oceanside on Saturday, and I didn't know that the facility was an industrial warehouse that had no AC.
Oh.
You know, the humidity must have been at least 60%. It had to be 100 degrees in there. I was in there for 3 solid hours rolling around and learning stuff. And to my credit, I only landed on my head twice. I think for a first-timer, that's not bad.
Wow.
Oh, good God. You are far too old for this.
I didn't come out with any serious injuries. You know, people were very nice and very appreciative. The guy that owned the company that I was training at, SoCal Pro Wrestling, he actually asked me if I thought about taking on wrestling as a career, and I looked at him and I just didn't really have an answer. You know, that's kind of a scary question in my age, but I think I was picking up things relatively quickly. So I'm looking forward to SAC Anime and, you know, being part of this tag team thing now. I'm not as scared as I used to be. Now I just have to worry about memorizing routines and how to communicate. That's going to be a whole different object lesson.
And watching episodes of Glow.
Well, no, that won't teach you anything. I mean, Jesus Christ. I think you'd be better off watching old episodes of Impact, but that's worse.
I know everything I need to know about wrestling from watching Glow.
The funny thing is, though, by the time it ended, I was having a little bit of trouble standing because, again, 3 hours sweating, you know, not used to all this. And my stomach was roiling for about half an hour solid. I thought for sure I was going to vomit everything. Then somebody handed me a hamburger, and I took one bite of it, and my stomach just instantly stopped. That's when I realized, okay, so I'm not trying to vomit. My stomach's just looking for anything to try and process right now.
Oh, I didn't eat today. Thanks for reminding me that.
You're welcome. But I mean,
Casey.
I try not
I know, and it's 8:15 p.m. Central Time right now, and I'm just realizing that all I've eaten is one Pop-Tart.
Yeah, I try not to be a big eater, but from 5 to 11, I had a burger, a cookie, a slice of pizza, 2 bottles of water, and 2 burritos. And I still felt like I was just okay.
That sounds like my usual daily intake.
Oh, and a pineapple smoothie. Yeah, okay. That too.
Nice.
Pineapple smoothie.
Yeah, but all that was in like a 5-hour period. So it was an interesting day. I'm actually looking forward to the next lesson. I may be tired and sore again, but it's going to be fun. And then the week after that, yeah, I'm going to stand in front of 900 people plus Twitch and see how this goes.
Oh yeah, I forgot Twitch was a thing there.
Thank you so much.
I was just thinking of just the YouTube videos.
No, this is going on the internet live.
Nice.
So before I pee myself in embarrassment, the subject of this week is Superior Iron Man Volume 1 by Marvel Comics. We'll get to that after the news of this week, and we're going to start with Marvel comic news. We start with the company owned by Disney and their characters and storylines coming soon to the comic books. Spectacular Spider-Man is losing its writer. Chip Zdarsky, the creator of Sex Criminals over at Image Comics. He joined the title when it was launched last year. He was working with artist Andy Kubert. And the series has had high ratings and high sales, but he's announced, or Zdarsky, I should say, announced during a Reddit AMA that he was leaving the Spider-Verse, but he's kind of sorry to be doing it now that he's seen where Nick Spencer is going with The Amazing Spider-Man.
Well, to be honest with you, making a Spider title sell lots of copies does not really require a whole lot of effort.
No, but Zdarsky is a highly heralded writer. He has been since he brought out Sex Criminals, which was a very unique concept, if a very bizarre one.
Oh, no, I'm not crapping on him. I'm just saying that, say Spectacular Spider-Man sold lots of copies. It's like saying new news, water, wet.
Yeah, well, Zdarsky is moving on to a pretty prestigious, another prestigious character. He's working on a 2-part Sandman story with Chris Bocciolo.
Oh, yeah, they are digging him up, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've, since Dark Knight's Metal, DC's been pushing to make the Sandman and his universe a bigger part of DC. Which is going to be another thing Neil Gaiman has a lot of fun with.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad he's involved.
So, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that Zdarsky's going, but at the same time, if you're a big-time writer, everybody wants a piece of you, and sooner or later you get to pick your projects.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four #1 came out last week. Anybody read it beyond me?
I have not had a chance to get through most of it. I got up to about halfway through when the Thing is like, Sue and Reed are not coming back. That was whole horse shit. I checked out right about there.
Okay, well, there was 2 major developments, I'd say, in the issue. I mean, the full team didn't come back together, but they teased by the end it was going to, and in the solicits for the second issue, that's where they say the 4 are going to be face-to-face again. But first of all, the Thing got engaged to Alicia Masters. Which,
I had heard of the scuttlebutt on that one was happening.
Yeah.
Go on.
I wasn't necessarily engaged with that one personally because they've done this before. They've just never actually said I do.
Right.
So I'm more curious to find out if they actually make it to nuptials this time around. But
I think it's time.
Well, it's been time for several characters to have serious changes in their relationships. It just always ends up being the characters I don't really have an interest in. But at the same time, though, the book had a side story at the end that was the art was done by, I think it was Simon Bianchi, and they've reestablished Doctor Doom in his status quo as the leader of Latveria.
Oh, and what is his viewpoint these days?
He doesn't seem to have much of one. He appears to have been in hiding since the final issues of... What's he doing?
Infamous Iron Man?
Yes, thank you. Infamous Iron Man. He was re-scarred at the end of that book, I believe.
Of course he was.
And he's been in hiding in the ruins of Castle Doom, and somebody inspired him to take the reins of the country again because it's been in chaos since he left, which always appears to happen. It seems like every time somebody removes Doom from Latveria, the whole country turns into Detroit.
And he was on a bit of a redemption streak. Was that completely erased at the very end of Infamous? Because I didn't read it.
That's the thing that's a little hard to gauge. I know he's seeking control of the country. I know he's getting back into the armor. He was just wearing the mask and like what was left of one of his old cloaks at the time. It looks like he's getting back into the mode of Doctor Doom. What his overall motivation is going to be is a big question mark because he, like the rest of the Marvel Universe, was pretty much unaware up until a few seconds ago that the Richards family still existed.
Huh.
So
Sloppy segue. I've been reading Runaways, which has been spectacular in its new season.
Okay.
Or new series, however you want to call it.
Okay.
And it's got 2 characters from the old Avengers AI series that ran for like maybe 10, 12 issues about 4 years ago.
It was a solid year before it was canceled.
Yeah, so one of those characters was a Doombot. And this Doombot has been comedy fucking gold the entire run. He comes in because he wants to fix his friend Victor Mancha. You know who Victor Mancha is?
Yes.
And he comes in with a gigantic suitcase, and in big, bold fucking letters, it just says, Doom! So you have no aspersions as to who this really is. But Doombot, I highly recommend checking him out in Runaways.
Okay. Well, I mean, the biggest takeaway I got from Fantastic Four that made me curious was it seems like a lot of the part-time Fantastic Four is going to have some kind of role in the series. You know, people have subbed in like Cage and Jennifer Walters and a couple others, Medusa and Crystal.
I saw it; they were in there.
Yeah. I hope it continues.
What about old Miss Marvel?
Sharon Carter?
Yeah.
She's gone insane, man. She's been a supervillain for a little while now.
Oh, that's right. She did go batshit.
Yeah, last I saw she was running a gang in a super prison.
Yeah, didn't she have like the Thing suit or some shit like that?
No, she was mutated again.
Oh.
That's her skin.
God, that's rough.
How would you like a story for an art style that pretty much redefined Spider-Man?
Are we talking McFarlane?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hit me.
He finally told the story about his relatively unique style of webbing. Before Todd McFarlane came on to draw Spider-Man, a lot of Spider-Man's webbing was designed by, or designated by black lines. You know, when he was connecting to something, there was a small web-like pattern, but it was, overall the webbing was kind of non-distinct in Spider-Man's history up until McFarlane started this new thing, where when Spider-Man was swinging, it wasn't these thin black lines, it was these thick white lines, like he was actually grabbing something in style of rope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fans started to call it spaghetti webbing without really knowing anything about why this style had come around. Well, according to McFarlane, he revealed that the phrase spaghetti webbing was actually coined by Marvel's editor-in-chief at the time. McFarlane doesn't name who that was, but given the dates, CBR says that would have been Tom DeFalco.
Yep. Good old Tom DeFalco.
According to McFarlane himself, quote, I began that look right from the start of my run as the artist on the book, and over time the webs got longer and longer. During one of my visits to Marvel, I was called into the editor-in-chief's office. This wasn't the first time I'd been in his office to discuss my Spider-Man's new art direction, but because I was messing with their icon character, some thought my style wasn't appropriate. On this day, the conversation was going well, but I could sense some frustration in the chief's voice. Finally, he couldn't contain himself, and he said, Todd, I need you to stop doing those damn spaghetti webbings. Unquote.
You know, as much as I don't like McFarlane, and I don't, and it's not because of his art, he really changed the status quo for Spider-Man, even to this day, with the crazy acrobatic positionings, the thick webs that not only were they thick, but they were wound up on sections, almost like barbed wire.
Mm-hmm.
Was cool, and he was willing to go the 9 yards and actually put the webbing on the mask, like a lot of artists would just, puss out, give you a distant shot of Spider-Man, all of a sudden he's solid red.
Yeah.
McFarlane was a welcome change to Spider-Man.
The funny thing is, though, the conversation didn't stop there. Accordingly, McFarlane said, quote, it was perfect. I ended the conversation by telling him I would stop doing them that way. Then I immediately went out and began drawing the next issue with the spaghetti webbings twice as long as before, unquote. And that has pretty much become
give him his own series.
Yeah, that pretty much became the standard for Spider-Man going forward, was these very thick styles of webbings.
Yeah. And then Larson was his follow-up artist, and he did the same thing.
Yeah, but Larson's claim to fame is the I don't know, what do you call it, the disjointed mandible of Venom.
Oh, God. And yeah, he's the one that invented the slimy tongue, which I'm not a fan of.
I'm cool.
And also segue, have you guys read Savage Dragon lately? It's practically porno.
I have not.
Can't say it's been high on my list, and I don't know why you're so excited about this.
No, it's just because Larson he's a respected artist. I mean, this guy is high caliber. He runs Image Comics, and so I was doing a search for Savage Dragon, and I was like, because I want to know the history, because I know there's 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting full frontal nudes and sex. I'm like, wait, this has got to be like a parody book. So I looked it up, Savage Dragon 228, 227. It's just porn. I don't know what's going on with Eric, but apparently, that's the kind of comic he wants to write now.
It's his character, it's his business.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, when you're writing the rules, you can pretty much do what you want. But, I mean, his choices, it's a little suspect.
Well, there's another choice that's coming up.
I love your segues. Go, hit me.
The series Tony Stark Iron Man is into issue 2. Issue 3 is upcoming. And we've had a tease of something by the writer of the series, Dan Slott. Apparently, for the 3rd issue, or somewhere in the upcoming issues of Tony Stark Iron Man, the current artist on it, Valerio Schiti, has designed a new Iron Man armor that may be the new standard for Tony Stark going forward.
Okay.
And I don't have any information beyond the one thing that Slott shared on social media, including Facebook. It's a single boot that indicates some of the classic Iron Man colors of red and black, but it appears to be some kind of gold lining on this boot as well, some kind of LED piping.
Oh.
So
I like the way that looks.
I can't say for sure what the total design element is. It almost looks like Sheedy's going for a bit more cyberpunk in Iron Man's latest standard armor.
That's cool.
Although those are some aggressive colors, I wonder if they're going to stick to that entire pattern.
I wouldn't call it aggressive. It's just red and black for the most part.
Yeah, red and black is typically given to villain colors. And it doesn't last very long when it comes to hero costume redesign. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's not opinion. That's the trend.
I'm just worried that black part is just the undersuit, and it's like the modular suit where it expands to whatever he needs.
That's a fair question. I mean, technology is changing so fast. Our version of what the future looks like seems to change on an almost yearly basis. I mean, I've been rewatching D Space Nine at work while I'm between projects, and I stare at them just tapping on these giant pads that are basically bigger than tablets that were out, I don't know, almost a decade ago.
Yep.
This is not the first time they've done a black undersuit with just modulars put onto it. Although this is probably the first time they've done the modules red. God damn it.
Well, Slott has made it a point to say that Iron Man has had a bevy of different armors in this series already. There's already in the first 2 issues been at least 3 different armors that have been debuted. So I imagine all that is leading to Stark's new design, especially with all the new characters they brought in that gives him new perspective.
Yeah.
Marvel has also revealed that an old storyline has gotten a new lease on life, quite literally. Did anybody read Daredevil 606 by Charles Soule and Phil Noto?
Did not.
I've fallen out of favor with Daredevil.
Okay, it had a callback to a storyline back from Daredevil number 25.
Wow.
Oh God, what the hell happened back in 25?
Well, back in 1967, this was the approximate time that Spider-Man had figured out by himself that Matt Murdock and Daredevil were the same person. And he left Matt Murdock a note just basically saying that his secret identity was safe, no harm done, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, Matt Murdock didn't find the note. Foggy Nelson and Karen Page did.
Oh.
This is
God damn it, Pete.
Yeah, this is how they found out about Matt's secret identity, but Matt managed to play that off by pretending he had a twin brother named Mike Murdock.
Oh, for Christ's sakes.
What?
Oh God.
Then in subsequent issues, when Foggy and Karen were getting a little too close to the truth, Matt faked his fake brother's death, and then portrayed it as if Mike had found somebody to carry on his tradition without telling him, this has been Matt the entire time. I don't know how the conversations happened in subsequent issues when Foggy was fully aware that Matt Murdock was Daredevil. Man, that must have taken like an entire bottle of Stolies to tell the tale. But anyway, I digress. Flash forward to Daredevil 606, okay? Wilson Fisk is the mayor. Daredevil wants the Kingpin for rigging the election. He contacts an Inhuman detective named Frank McGee to help with the investigation. McGee brings in the mutant Cypher. All this is getting kind of complicated.
Is this detective, has he made anybody angry?
Not that I know of, but get this.
Because Mr. McGee, don't make me angry.
Yeah, well, this is where it gets good. Daredevil overhears a police scanner about a disturbance involving people with powers, and he heads out to help the understaffed NYPD. They're still kind of on their back heels after a hand invasion recently. Ninjas. Go figure. So he comes to the bar with no name, and there's an entire group of supervillains outside fighting somebody. When he scatters them all, suddenly there's one man standing in the middle who introduces himself as Mike Murdock.
What?
The fuck?
Yeah, the person actually exists. The current speculation is that since all this involves Inhumans, at some point Reader may have accidentally found one of the old notes involving Mike Murdock, and when Reader reads something, he creates it in reality.
Reader.
Oh.
Who's Reader?
He's an Inhuman.
Oh, I got that part, but I mean, what reference? What is he from? Was he a team? Is he old? Is he new?
He's a I want to say he's a relatively new creation in some of the Inhuman series when they were trying to make him a bigger deal in the Marvel Universe about 4 years ago.
Oh.
And his power took his sight, but he reads in Braille, and up to 3 times a day, when he takes something and reads it, he creates it in reality.
Okay, that's a character that needs to die.
So that's the current speculation as to how it exists. As you can imagine, 606 ended with Mike, trying to introduce himself to Daredevil.
Oh,
Weird.
wow.
Yeah.
That is just as graceful as a clone Spider-Man.
That's stretching it a lot.
Well, I mean, it's not as rough as Amazing Spider-Man #3, where Peter Parker and Spider-Man had a face-to-face conversation, but that's another story.
Oh God, I read that. Jesus. Who the
Schizophrenia
hell
is
wrote
okay.
that?
It's,
Oh my God, what a ridiculous issue.
it's a busy time for superheroes to meet their alter egos.
Oh my God. Who's writing Spider-Man? Amazing Spider-Man right now?
I think that's Nick Spencer.
Okay, Nick Spencer dropped the ball on that one.
I read the issue. I found it okay. It's nothing outside the realm of comic books, really.
But I mean, it's pretty ridiculous.
No,
I mean,
ridiculous
it's
would have been
pretty ridiculous.
ridiculous would have been giving whoever the substitute is a goatee. That would have been ridiculous.
The substitute. Oh,
The evil twin brother, goatee, mirror universe type thing.
I got that. Yeah.
Wrestling heel turn, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I got it. I'm still reeling.
Well, how's this for reeling? One of the X-Men isn't a mutant.
Which
Okay,
one?
hit me.
What?
I demand to know the answer to this.
One of the things I read the past week was the Hunt for Wolverine Adamantium agenda. It was the end of this particular miniseries of all these. One of the groups of characters looking for Wolverine now that there's an idea in the Marvel Universe that he is alive.
Right.
It's the only one I've personally enjoyed. I'll say that with complete honesty. But at the end of this particular issue, a group of characters looking for Wolverine, all new Wolverine Laura Kinney, who was still in the black and gray at this time, Iron Man, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Spider-Man all came across somebody who had an entire library of genetic histories of just about every superhero in the Marvel Universe. That turned out to be Mr. Sinister.
Okay.
Of course.
Iron Man was working on decoding his database because it was heavily encrypted, but he couldn't make it. He wanted to take the database away and deal with it at a different time, but everyone convinced him to destroy it because you know how Tony Stark is. When he gets a little curious and starts monkeying with things, not everything goes as planned.
This is a reality that we live in.
So they did convince Tony, who did use all of his repulsor rays on the database and destroyed it. As they were talking over the situation at the end of the issue, Stark revealed that he understood two things from what little he could decode of the database before he destroyed it. One of the X-Men is not a mutant. They're throwing off fake signatures and being able to be passed off as a mutant. The other thing is, whoever this character is, they're a sleeper agent for Sinister.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Whoa.
Actually, there's
a new X-Traitor storyline has been introduced.
Well, I'll get to another reveal that happened before that, but at the moment, I've spent a little while running through my head the current X-Men rosters and who's still technically alive from the X-Men. My best guess right now would be this is Gambit.
You know what my best guess is? Armor.
Be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Cool.
I thought it
would make complete sense.
Yeah, Gambit was my decision because of the reveal in X-Men The End that he was a creation of Sinister from Summers' DNA.
That would work too, yeah. But if Summers is a mutant and he's cloned based on his DNA, then he too would be a mutant, wouldn't he? Because your genetic code is...
Not necessarily, because when I say Summers, I mean his DNA is derived from the Summers family. He's basically an unknown Summers brother, Cyclops, Havoc, and Vulcan. But
Gotcha.
he was created to be a new body for Sinister to inhabit, but Apocalypse found out about this thing and didn't want one of his minions, a.k.a. Sinister, to have something potentially that powerful and basically got rid of it, which is how the Thieves Guild found this unknown baby.
Gotcha.
That sounds like a Chris Claremont production.
I don't remember who wrote X-Men The End, so I couldn't tell you. The other thing that was revealed before that is that Laura Kinney is not Wolverine's clone.
Oh, God, not another retcon.
It's
All right, hit me. What's going on there?
It's a minor retcon, but not a major one. According to Sinister's DNA profile, there is a serious amount of I don't remember her name. The woman who carried X-23 to birth.
Yeah, okay.
Something Kinney.
Yeah.
Dr. something.
Right. In other words,
Dr.
there's enough of her DNA within Laura Kinney's system that she is technically the daughter of both. She's not just a gender-flip clone.
Well, you would have to have other DNA present for her to be female and not male. If it was an exact clone, it would be male, X and Y chromosomes and all that.
Well, according
so
to
she's not a clone, she's a test tube baby.
Yes. Joanna, to answer your question, the story of X-23 as the origin was told was that this Dr. Kinney was brought in to clone Wolverine, and because a lot of other geneticists had tried and failed in this particular weapons program, she had supposedly found a way to stabilize the DNA of Wolverine by changing the Y chromosome to an X.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it is supposed to be Wolverine's DNA with
there was a lab involved with the cloning, but I didn't know that was the stabilization. Okay.
Right. Up until this storyline, basically everyone assumed X-23 was Wolverine with one chromosomal change.
Right.
So where does that leave Honey Badger?
That's the more interesting question, because Honey Badger is still technically a clone, but she may no longer be a clone of a clone. She's now technically just a clone of Laura.
Okay. I love Honey Badger, by the way.
It doesn't change the story significantly. It just opens up a couple more storytelling potentials for Laura Kinney, is the way I took it.
Honestly, I think
I agree.
It makes more sense because this gender flipping zone still doesn't cause all those different alterations.
I agree with you. That makes sense. The other thing that has been announced as far as the X-Men is the roster for the first few issues of Uncanny X-Men. And the answer to that question is all of them.
Oh, it's a blanket book, like a hub?
No.
Like everybody?
Everybody. Let me start by telling you that they've announced the creators for the first few issues. There are multiple writers: Ed Brisson, Kelly Thompson, and Matthew Rosenberg. And there are multiple artists: Mahmoud Asrar, R.B. Silva, and Yildiray Sinar.
Let me guess. Is this a weekly book?
It will be for the first 10 weeks, and that's because they've already announced what the first story is.
What is it?
It's a word that's going to be really familiar to fans of the last 20 years worth of comics. The first storyline, they're calling it X-Men Disassembled. Basically, they're taking the entirety of the active roster of X-Men, everybody who currently has a pulse, and they're putting him in the first 10 issues, which will be released on a weekly basis, and after the course of this storyline, the X-Men will be honed down to their first official roster of Uncannies. Whether that involves multiple deaths, as it did with Avengers Disassembled, I cannot say. For all I know, this is just a selection process until we figure out who's combat, who's teachers, and who's neither.
I wonder. Oh God! I almost went fanboy. Of course, I go to my first.
Almost. What's this crap?
There's no halfway.
I know he's got his own title with Weapon X, but I always have to wonder if Sabretooth is involved.
He's not in this particular picture. As a matter of fact, nobody in Weapon X or what's designated to be Weapon X Force is involved, with the exception of Domino. I can send you an image that was released with the presser for X-Men Disassembled. It includes just about everybody we've seen recently, including Firestar in the background. I
noticed there's no Wolverine.
Not unless you count Laura Kinney, and Logan still hasn't returned as of yet. At least not to the regular roster. The curiosity I found, though, was in the lower right-hand corner. Jesse and I discussed this last week.
I'm looking right at her.
And
that's the first thing that caught my attention. Is like, why does Psylocke look like Betsy?
Interesting.
Well, that was actually the cover to a variant of one of the other Hunt for Wolverine miniseries, Mystery in Madripoor. In that one, as of issue 2, Psylocke was supposed to be dead, but her psychic powers were running around as a manifestation of Logan's alias Patch. So, in the variant cover for issue 4, it was noted that, Japanese Psylocke was still laying dead, but this woman with the purple X symbol on her outfit was standing over her. So it appears that Betty is going to be British again. And Jesse and I conversed that may be pretty apt to do in this era where people are very sensitive as to characters who are white suddenly turning other ethnicities.
And that's probably exactly what's going on there. Although, if we're that aside, that particular factoid, which is important, aside, it's going to be a little problematic because Betsy's body has been dead for about 20 years.
That is true. However, I counter with comics.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying how they're going to do it is problematic. But they could pull Colossus because Revanche, which is the body that Quanon was inhabiting, which looks like Betsy Braddock and which is clearly this woman, died of the legacy virus back in 1996, right about the time that Colossus also did. So, there you go.
Yeah, but it does look like a pretty complete group of people that are currently alive, including several characters who haven't been seen in regular continuity for about a good 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good idea, but I really hope that Quanon and whoever's in Quanon's body, they do something with that, because that's still a cool looking character.
I think they'll remove it for the time being. I expect some of the characters from this to be involved in whatever Uncanny X-Men becomes. I just hope that they choose deep in the roster. I don't want to see the same media-friendly 6 or 7 characters I've been seeing since, the X-Men cartoon from the 90s.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So, I just hope they pick well. And
now, is that above Dust?
Mm-hmm.
Is that Doug Ramsey in a beard?
Probably. I know Cypher's been rocking a beard lately.
Has he? Okay, then that's definitely him, because that threw me off for a second.
Okay. As a matter of fact, let me reopen that real quick, because right when you asked that was when I was closing tabs.
And that's obviously Boom Boom right next to him, and then Mercury and Magma and Sunspot.
Yeah, I don't know how you can mistake Boom Boom for anybody, really.
I know.
Let me see. Where were you pointing there? Oh, yeah, that's Cypher with a beard.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I understand, he's been having a little trouble in the modern world because now that the internet is so prevalent in handheld devices, he's been basically drawing down information in languages like it's crazy. It's a little hard for him to move out of corners at some points.
And they do need to change his look because there's really too many generic blonde boys with short haircuts in Marvel Universe.
That's why they keep dying like poppies, or like young Jedis, as it were. The last bit of Marvel comic news has to do with something I never thought would happen again.
Oh?
Yeah, at Fan Expo Boston 2018, some fans, or there was a panel actually with John Byrne who was talking about his recent side project, where he is self-writing a continuation to his volume of X-Men that he calls X-Men Elsewhen. It's a just-for-fun project he was doing, right?
Yeah, I've been following this because I'm a fan of John Byrne. He created Sabretooth.
Okay.
Fanboy. Anyway, I've been following his website, and I saw on the forums his post about him creating his own little X-Men universe.
Yeah.
But he was doing it privately, you know?
He is, but that's not the story. The story, though, is that Byrne, during Fan Expo Boston, said that he got an email from C.B. Cebulski, the editor-in-chief of Marvel, saying that he loves what Byrne has been doing, and he would like to talk more about this.
Oh, God, I would love John Byrne to draw for Marvel again.
That
And
would be awesome.
The amazing thing is, as much as Byrne has disliked Marvel since the early 2000s, he actually left the door open for conversations, even at this panel.
Yeah, I know that we talked about John Byrne a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the fact that he was only signing IDW books of his own, but apparently between...
That was a little bit different because he was going to a convention. I don't remember where it was. It was something before San Diego Comic-Con. But he was promoting a book he had recently worked on for IDW, and the deal was he would sign 3 items, but 2 of them had to be like IDW comic books, like whatever his current run of stuff was.
Okay, but the thing is, at the time, he was not signing any comics from Marvel at all.
No, he
and
would.
People were...
That was the third item. You could bring it with you. IDW may have changed the rules at the signing, but that wasn't Byrne rules. That was the rules that IDW had set up at the booth.
Okay, well, let me finish my thought, Jeremy.
I'm just trying to give you the facts, dude. Calm down.
The facts remain is that between that moment, which he actually did say, I'm not signing Marvel books, and now he did change his stance and has been signing Marvel books left and right. And a lot of people have been taking pictures of him signing, like, X-Men 136 and shit like that.
Yeah, he still won't detail what exactly his blow-up was prior at Marvel, but it sounds like things have smoothed over because neither side has confirmed anything quite yet, but in the world of entertainment, when there's no denials, that usually means something is happening.
Yeah, well, you know what? She-Hulk doesn't have her title. Boom. Done. There you go.
Not sure that would hold up today, but that's a whole different conversation.
Joanna, back me up.
I do agree with you on certain points.
But he's standing on that hill alone.
I'm dying on this hill.
Boys to your corners.
Hey, don't test me. I'm learning suplexes. And now we do move into DC comic news, where we talk about the characters and storylines currently owned by AT&T and where they're going to go now and in the near future. And DC, in its preview book, DC Nation, issue number 4, has a cover where they detail that one of 6 characters is going to die in 3 weeks.
I saw that.
Main character?
Well, technically they've all been main characters at one point or another. I would say that all of them are firmly in the B category right now, from A to F.
Yeah, there's actually 2 characters in that whole picture that could die, and it really wouldn't matter.
There's 6 characters total here. You have Booster Gold, Arsenal, the former Red Arrow, Roy Harper, Harley Quinn, that appears to be the Tim Drake Robin, Cyborg, and Kyle Rayner. And honestly, of the 6, I would pick Kyle.
I'm picking Kyle.
Yeah, I'd have to.
And it's unlike some people, I don't have anything against the character. He was a Green Lantern when all the others were unavailable, and sometimes he gets, I think, put upon because of it by fans. But the only reason why I pick him is because, frankly, there are 6 Earth Green Lanterns right now, and that's probably about 3 too many.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, people were thinking that good old Kyle was going to take the big dirt nap about 8 years ago.
For what reason?
During Blackest Night, during that time, there was 4 lanterns going on Earth, and they thought that either he would become another lantern color,
Mhm.
or he would die.
He became a White Lantern during this period, didn't he?
Then he went on, right around that time, he managed not to die. It went on to Green Lantern and the New Guardians, and he became a White Lantern. That lasted for a few years. Then it went away. He lost the white ring, became almost blue, but then changed it to green at the last moment. That's where he is now.
Okay. Well, it's just, when you break down these characters, just about everybody except for Kyle has a current purpose. You know, Cyborg is going to be one of the stars of an upcoming Justice League offshoot, Justice League Odyssey. Tim Drake just returned from everybody thinking he was dead. I don't think they're going to kill him again that quickly. Harley
Nope.
Quinn and Booster Gold as a pair are the center of the mystery around the Sanctuary storyline and Heroes in Crisis. You know, they're the ones who are thought to be the murderers of unknown amounts of superheroes at the therapy house. And then Arsenal just reappeared next to Red Hood at the end of the latest Red Hood and the Outlaws, and appears to be part of Jason Todd's new Rebel group going forward. So everybody except for Kyle has somewhere else to be right now.
Yeah, as a lot of comic book pundits, that's a new term, have been pointing at Kyle as well.
You know, so it just seems to me a simple path of elimination, and I would be sorry to see him go, only because it seems like several things have been tried and they've made him interesting, but readers just don't seem to gravitate toward him.
They kind of screwed over his storyline involving Sinestro's daughter, who, out of nowhere, loses her shit completely, and then takes off with the Sinestro Corps and says, "We're going to fight the Green Lanterns now."
Yeah.
Within an issue. One issue.
Yeah. And as I alluded to in that... I'm sorry, go ahead, Joanna.
I was just going to say bad breakup? I don't know.
Well, okay, what happened is, I'm going to do this and you can move on. For a while, the greens and the yellows were working together like cop partners. You know, you had one green, you had one yellow. This is the reason why Guy Gardner and Kilowog are friends. This was happening for a while, and then this weird assassin from the future came and was screwing with everybody. Kyle killed him, but right before he killed him, he analyzed his genealogy for whatever reason. Rings do this shit. And it turned out he was the son of Kyle and Serenic, which is Sinestro's daughter. She found out about this, that he'd been keeping this secret, and that he killed him, and lost her shit. Despite the fact that the kid came from the future to kill everybody,
Right.
she still decided that Kyle sucks, and the Green Lanterns have betrayed us, and I'm going to live to be my father's daughter, and we're going to take the Yellow Lanterns and spread fear across the galaxy, all within one issue.
Who wrote this?
Who do you think?
I don't know authors.
Ben Diddy? I'm not a fan.
Well, since we already went over the big reveal at the end of Red Hood and the Outlaws, I guess I don't need to go back over Arsenal's reveal there. However, I don't quite know why Batman was so weirdly single-minded that he got knocked through a roof by Bizarro and shot in the hand by Arsenal in the same issue. Go figure. However, one of my favorite artists working today, he's usually a cover artist for the big companies. His name is Stanley Lau. They call him the Art Germ. Yeah, that's a name. He's doing an I think it's a variant cover for Catwoman #3 of Catwoman in a little black dress. And, oh my god, it is an outstanding cover just because of its subtlety. There's nothing hypersexual about it. It is just provocative. I sent you guys the image that came directly off his Twitter. He has this very gorgeous digital painted style.
Wow.
Wow. It is pretty.
Yeah, it's a very confident image, I think.
Very detailed.
Mm-hmm. Especially since you can almost see the cocktail party going on in the background. I like the look. I like the angle on this one too. It's not like whoever's doing the art on Titans. That person likes to do extreme angles all the frackin' time. I feel like I'm looking down someone's forehead every other panel. So, I invite you to take a look at his Twitter. He's got a bunch of images that he works on for the different companies. Speaking of Bat-related characters, though, Batman 53 is upcoming, and Tom King says that this is going to be an important issue when it comes to his 103-issue run of Batman. We're currently at issue, I think, number 52 that came out, I want to say, last week. And, let me see. According to King, he said, quote, "Comps arrived for Batman 53, the conclusion to Cold Days with art by Ink Drop Ink and Betty B. In this 103-issue run, this is one of the big ones. It's 103 because I'm selfish and want to do 100 that are just mine. 7, 8, and 22 were co-written with great but other people. There will be other standalone one-shots through the run. One's coming up in 54 and another in 61, unquote. King must have impressed somebody a whole lot to be able to say, okay, I get to do the next 103 issues of Batman. How's that sound?
Somebody screwed up on that contract.
I think he's doing fine. I mean,
he's probably doing fine, but I mean, damn.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Batman, but King's made some of his stories more entertaining. The latest one, Cold Days, it's a very bizarre story where Bruce Wayne he went to the morgue because there were 3 bodies of young women, all of whom had massive decreases of temperature in the brain when he examined them. So, if you're Batman, who do you think did this?
Freeze.
Yep.
Right, so he went directly to Mr. Freeze, who was waiting for him in armor and cold gun, but the entire time they're fighting, Freeze is screaming, I didn't do it. He was being beat in the face, kept screaming, I didn't do it. But when Batman turned it over to police, Freeze just said, okay, fine, I did it. But here's the kicker. Bruce Wayne was picked for the jury for Freeze's trial.
Uh-oh.
And now that he's re-examined everything, though, he's convinced that Freeze didn't do it. And the other jurors all came to the same conclusions Batman did. Women died, cold brains, must have been the same guy that's always been dealing with cold throughout the history of Gotham.
Right.
But as Bruce Wayne is trying to explain to people, Batman may have jumped to conclusions because the police coroner, who was said by Jim Gordon to be very good, didn't find decreases in temperature during their investigation, but when Batman came in about an hour later, for some reason these brains were much cooler. And, he also reasoned that Freeze also has contacts in the underworld. Yes, he was reformed, but when you hear Batman's coming for you, do you just sit and wait for an ass whooping, or do you try to defend yourself?
Exactly.
You run for the hills.
He didn't run. Where's he going to run to? He's a guy that survives in extreme temperatures.
Yeah, he's got to stand his ground.
Yeah, so even though, and everybody's arguing, but he confessed to police. Yeah, well, that's when Wayne argued, okay, he just got his head kicked in by Batman. He doesn't want that to happen again, so he may retreat to the one place where Batman may not run in to beat him up again.
Prison.
Yep.
So he's trying to convince these 11 other people who are already extremely sure what happened that that's not what happened. And basically, the funny thing is, the reason why these people are so sure is the same reason why it's so frustrating to talk about Batman in comic book stores. When you say, well, why would he do this? That's when these jurors are just responding, it's Batman. Of course he knows what he's doing.
Batman.
Right.
Why would we dispute that?
Yeah.
Wayne actually want to read this.
Yeah, Wayne has to sit here over 3 issues and argue that Batman isn't perfect, which has to be just doubly demoralizing.
Oh, his poor little ego.
Oh, he'll survive.
He's taking pages from Sean Murphy.
Yeah. Oh, God, it was an interesting deconstruction of how perfect Batman is. But if you want to read a comic book about how perfect Batman is, you need to be reading Detective Comics. They've just upgraded the Bat Signal in Detective Comics 986 by Brian Hill, Felipe Briones, Adriano Lucas, and Sal Cipriano.
Speaking of that, whatever happened to the signal?
I'm not done. In issue 985, there's a character named Karma who kidnapped a bus full of children and gave the Batman an ultimatum. In exchange for the kids, Batman has to kill the Bat family. Issue 986 started. There's only 2 hours remaining until Karma's deadline, and Batman decided to assuage everyone's fear by having Alfred break out what he calls the Signal Breaker. What the Signal Breaker did, basically, was it co-opted just about every LED screen in central Gotham, as well as just about everyone's cell phones and tablets, and had a big glowing bat symbol on it. It's basically his way of saying, I'm on the case, don't freak. Which is an interesting visual, but at the same time I'm thinking, fuck, man, Bruce Wayne just hijacked the internet of Gotham. If he ever turns evil, this whole city is screwed.
Yeah, you're surprised that he did it, and I was like, okay.
I'm not surprised he did it. I just looked at it and said, okay, that's within Batman's believability, but at the same time, do you want any one person having this much control of anything?
Nope.
That terrifies me.
Privacy Acts. Come on.
I know.
I think that's what Lucius was afraid of in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
apparently Heath Ledger isn't here to stop him, so everything's fine. Now, Casey, what was your question?
My question is, what about the signal?
What about him?
Well, it seems like his series stalled.
The series was delayed 2 or 3 times, and I haven't seen any solicits past issue 3 of Batman and the Signal.
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, has the character even popped up anywhere since?
Not that I've seen. I've heard a reference in some stories that he was being referred to as Lark again, but I can't tell if that was some website rehashing a story that they put out a year ago.
That is unfortunate. I really like that character's design.
So I couldn't tell you. He pops up every now and again in the issues of Tom King's Batman, but it's definitely not in anything approaching even a co-starring role, I would say, at this point.
That's unfortunate.
Matt Wagner is, I think he's an artist. No, he's a
believe so.
penciler. He's a penciler who's been working on issue number 54 of Batman with Tom King, but he's got a little bit of a beef with DC at the moment.
What's his beef?
Well, it's all about his son, Brennan Wagner, who it turns out is a colorist in comics. And he was also working on issue number 54 when Matt Wagner received words that his son's art would not be used, and the coloring would instead be done by one of DC's in-house artists. In other words, Matt Wagner's son was summarily fired, and DC just told him, we're doing this instead.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Apparently, according to Matt Wagner, DC's powers that be determined that Brennan's work was too different from the usual stylings of the current run of Batman. Therefore, he was out.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah. Wagner said he received the news from the Batman group editor, Jamie Rich, who claims he went to bat for the father-son team. Wagner also said that the current writer, King himself, was a fan of how the issue was looking. So it looks like there's going to be a little bit of internal strife over this one. I couldn't say what the difference is. For all I know, 54 could have been a large flashback issue where it would have been okay to have a color differential. So I don't know what's going on here. It's not the first time something like that
when it comes
happened.
to these, when it comes to some of these titles that DC has got, especially Batman, they want to keep the theme, look, and everything pretty uniform.
Yeah.
Red, boring.
You know,
and
the thing is,
Yeah.
sometimes, though, inspiration can really take a character in new directions. You know,
I agree.
Ask McFarlane and his spaghetti webbing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, you knew exactly where I was going with that.
Also, according to CBR.com, there may be another Flash War event coming, but they think that the linchpin of it is going to be Bart Allen.
He just showed up.
I know.
Oh, well, fuck it.
Joshua Williamson, the writer on The Flash, was at Comic-Con International, and he said to CBR directly, quote, "I can't believe we kept it a secret. I can't believe no one knew. The first time I brought up Bart in a meeting was when I got the job. My original document had everything in it, and they said, no, you can't do that. But part of it at the time was that you just can't go to them and say, I want this character just because. You have to have a story and a plan for the character. I would say about every 6 months, I would bring Bart up. Actually, it took the first year of me having the job to bring him up again, and then I bring him up again and again. It would always come back around." Unquote.
Yeah, and I believe it. Bart's absence has been felt almost as much as Wally West, but obviously not even 80% of that. But yeah, I mean, after his mishandling in New 52, making him evil Bart from the future, I
we
was
call that
always
Black
waiting
Bart.
for. Was he called Black Bart? That's
That's what I call
that's
it anyway.
racist.
That's Black Bart. No, racist was Blazing Saddles Black Bart, but I'm okay with Black Bart from Evil 52.
No, I was actually referring to the fact that Deadpool called Black Tom a racist when he said what his name was.
Brian Michael Bendis' first ever Batman story is being reprinted in a 6-page Elseworld short with artist Michael Gaydos. It's going to be reprinted in Bendis and Gaydos' Pearl number 1. It's Bendis' first creator-owned work to be done through DC Comics. The story is apparently titled Citizen Wayne. According to Bendis himself, he said, quote, "Newer fans don't know because it was a long time ago. But just before I signed with Marvel, just before I started Ultimate Spider-Man and Jessica Jones, Michael Gaydos and I were hired to write and draw a 6-page Batman story. It was an Elseworlds Batman story called Citizen Wayne. It was Citizen Kane with Batman. I called up Dan Didio and I said, hey, can we reprint that Batman story in the back of Pearl? People don't know about it, and it's cute. Dan said yes, so our very first Batman story will be reprinted in the back of Pearl number 1. People who have already ordered the issue are getting a bonus. This is on the house, as they say. For anyone else who wants a copy of it, pick up Pearl number 1. You're going to get a brand new character from the creators of Jessica Jones, and, as a bonus, a pretty fun Batman story." Unquote.
That's not bad.
Yeah, Pearl #1 is on sale actually this Wednesday, August 15th.
Well.
What?
No, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just nodding. Just
Is that what that sound is?
Our audio
processing
version of
everything.
Okay, I was
Yes.
assuming for a while here that
Disagree.
sound is Joanna trying to collaborate while eating a sandwich.
No, I'm just sitting here. Yep, I'm processing.
Okay. Well, we all know that Justice League Odyssey is coming after a delay. I believe it's now coming out in September by Joshua Williamson and Stepan Sejic. And for a long time, since we've known the roster, a lot of people have assumed that the weirdest thing about this is that Darkseid is a member of the Justice League.
Yeah, we
That
talked about
is
it a few
kind of
times on the
bizarre.
show.
Yeah, according to Williamson, though, he's getting the most questions about another member of this Justice League, and that's Azrael.
Why is
Really?
that?
Well, he told CBR, quote, "People keep asking me about Azrael and saying, why is he there? I think he'll play an important part of this, and people will be surprised. He's definitely the oddball, but for me, every team book needs the POV character who's being brought into the situation, and he's a character that's never been in space before, so he gets to be the POV for this story." It's funny because every time I talk about this, I say Jessica is the POV, no Cyborg is, no Starfire is, because I really try to make sure each of them has an individual role and a voice in the book, but I think people will be surprised by the direction that Azrael goes, unquote.
Oh, Azrael. He
That's a-
used to be so cool.
That's a fair outlook, though. As far as the 5 heroes of this team, Azrael's the only one who's never been in space, and technically would probably be the one most out of water when it comes to the storyline.
Is he still John Paul Valley, or is he like a new guy?
I think Azrael's a newer guy. I don't believe it's the same character. I would have to look it up, but honestly, Azrael has never been the biggest interest for me growing up, even when he
Yeah, I
took over
hear
as
ya.
Batman. I know we discussed Stepan Sejic's design and how Azrael's armor has slimmed down quite a bit, but still rocks a whole lot of bat symbology here. Last time the character was seen actually was in Detective Comics. He was running in that red and white tunic you've seen in like some of the Batman video games.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's back in a very Batman-esque armor.
They should just go back to the whole Caseta and Nolan version from Sword of Azrael.
Can't talk about something I don't know.
Well, when his first appearance, he had a hood and a red face mask symbol, and he had those thick gauntlets that only had 3 fingers on them and blazing swords coming out of them.
Oh, that.
Yeah,
I used to call that the Thing Monk.
because of the fingers.
Yeah, he had hands like the Thing, and he was a monk. I used to call it the Thing Monk. I didn't know what the hell it was.
Oh my god.
Last up, when it comes to DC comic news, Hawkeye's gotten a new power that's an old power. I say that because
Alright.
he's never rocked this power before, but other characters have, and you'll understand as soon as we discuss it. This came out in issue number 3 of the Hawkman regular series by Robert Venditti and Brian Hitch. Stop moaning. I know you're about to start.
Somebody hired him. Anyway, going on.
In issue number 3, Hawkman was being jumped on Dinosaur Island by a group of what's called Featherins? I believe that's how you pronounce it. Feitherans. Featherins. They're winged, bird-like anthropomorphic creatures.
Mhm.
And there was a group of them in the sky, and Hawkman had grabbed his mace, and there was a group in front of him, so he gave his mace a toss and hit probably 6 of them in a row. Then he reached out his hand, and that mace came flying back to him.
Ah, Venditti.
Huh.
Like I said, it's a new power to Hawkman, but it's not a power that's technically new when it comes to comic books.
Yeah.
Something has been well exampled by Thor in Marvel Comics, multiple Thors in Marvel Comics, and Thor in Marvel films.
Right.
This is called a power of convenience.
Well, they may actually think this has to do more with Scott Snyder than Robert Venditti. This may be an upgrade to the mace now that it's been changed back to a mace of nth metal, and Scott Snyder has given nth metal all these bizarre properties as a result of Dark Knight's metal.
That is probably accurate.
You know,
That's
I
the
mean,
new DC Uru.
yeah, I know Joanna and Casey haven't read it. Jesse and I read every single issue, plus a number of tie-ins, and we went over it ad nauseum for like a half hour per issue, and dear God, that is some cracked out stuff. That is like... That's like somebody sat down and before they started writing, they took a bunch of Heisenberg blue meth, mixed it up with Pop Rocks, snorted it, then chased it with a Mountain Dew Kickstarter.
Admittedly,
Wow.
it was a visually impressive series with a really nice, grand story going on. So it just.
Oh yeah, Greg Capullo did impressive artwork, but somewhere after issue 1, Scott Snyder took like a bunch of cocaine, mixed it in with a Jolt Cola, drank the whole thing down before getting like eyedroppers of pure iodine and going, okay, so what does he do in the next panel?
Science, bitch.
Jolt Cola, though. I mean, Jolt Soda. That takes me back.
Yeah, that's a callback. But I mean, when one of the more impressive visuals in issue 8 is the Batman in glowing nth metal armor riding a dragon that has the face of the Joker that he punched in the nose and is screaming yeehaw.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
we've
definitely
talked about this.
drug-induced.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember staring at that thinking, that's probably one of the things I've wanted Batman to do most in my time is develop a little bit of emotion, and now that it's happened, I hate me. Therefore, I hate Scott
too
Snyder
much.
more for making me hate me.
Yeah, I glossed over that part. He had to point that out to me like 3 times while we were discussing, and it's like, oh wow, he did do that.
You should have heard it in the conversation when I said Batman yeehawed, and Jesse just said, he did what? The other guy says, oh, he did yeehaw. Where was that? It was, I can't remember the exact page. I just pointed out like page 16, top of the panel. Then there's Jesse. Oh dear God, he did. I blocked that out. What the hell?
I think we talked about Batman saying yeehaw. I think
We have.
We've discussed. Yeah.
How can you not go back to it as one of the weirder moments in comics?
I think you also brought it up during the
Which-
bootleg episode, which is what I'm calling last week's.
Amazing, I'm being stalked. Okay. Last up, we have general comic and convention news. We talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world, and we have to talk about Joanna.
Yay!
All right, Joe, you've got center stage.
All right.
I bring this up because one of the major announcements last week as far as conventions actually has to do with Power Morphicon. There's going to be a one-of-a-kind experience thanks to the Shattered Grid storyline and Kyle Higgins.
Yes.
Oh.
I'm excited about this.
Uh,
Are you talking about the live reading?
I am. Higgins in Power Morphicon. Kyle Higgins, I should say, is one of the writers of the Power Rangers comic books by Boom Studios. And they announced that Higgins and Morphicon are going to announce a live reading of issue number 25 of Power Rangers, the end of the Shattered Grid storyline, during a panel right there at Power Morphicon. But it's not just the reading. Some of the names of the people doing the live reading are just as impressive, including Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger.
Tommy!
Oh my God, I would actually watch that recording.
Aaron Cahill will also be at the table, as well as Walter Jones, who played Zack in the original
Zack.
series.
Oh my God, I'd do it just for that.
I know.
Paul-
Like, this is so excited.
There's still more. Paul Shire, Peter Sudarso, Megan Camarena, and more. They still won't tell us the entirety of who's sitting at the table.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute,
we're
didn't
gonna find out.
didn't the old Pink Ranger also factor into this? So wouldn't Amy Jo Johnson be a catch?
She could be, but she's not in the official announcement. She may be part of
She-
the and more. They may be holding out surprises. But on
Could be a
top
surprise.
on top of which, and if you thought all that was cool, it was also announced that there will be a brand new musical accompaniment by the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers composer Ron Wasserman.
Yep.
Oh God, didn't he do the original?
Yeah.
Yep.
Talk about a one-of-a-kind event. All this is happening during Power Morphicon at the Anaheim Convention Center this coming Saturday. I believe that would be the 19th. No, the 18th. Saturday, August 18th, 6 to 7 p.m. in the main panel room. I'm not a Power Rangers fan, but even I admit I would like to sit in the room for that.
Yeah,
No,
see, that's
I will be there.
exactly what I was gonna. That's exactly what I'm saying, and now I'm jealous because Joe better record it for us.
I will think about it. Some of them, sometimes for events like that, they won't let you.
I
I'll
know.
see what I can get away with.
I'm pretty sure you'll come away with a mental recording.
That's not
Probably,
gonna
and I
help
just,
me,
you know,
Jesse. That's
project
not
it
gonna
out
help
of my eyes.
Yeah,
you
there's-
know, like Cyborg.
This is going to be one of two different cases when it comes to major conventions and big panels. Either everybody's going to be allowed to record something, or everybody's going to have to sit on their hands because as soon as they see a cell phone, they will treat you like Jason David Frank at the premiere of the Power Rangers film.
Basically, and he'll probably be the one pointing him out, like, oh, nope, there's a camera.
Yeah, or even worse, mid-reading, Jason David Frank takes a selfie and all of a sudden security just grabs him by the elbows and says, nope, can't do that, let's go.
Oh my God, I bet you they do that.
It's funny.
that Amy Jo Johnson now has to show up.
I kind of want her to because we only briefly got to meet her at the Fan Expo out here in Dallas this past, it was a couple months back. I don't remember what month. It's been a long year. She was, she had a really long line. She doesn't do conventions much, but
Hmm.
my husband and I are actually hoping that she might be there.
Well,
So,
I will leave that up to you to tell us. It was also announced this past week that Stan Lee and his handlers have announced that he will no longer do live convention appearances or signings. He will only do private signings from his home. And that doesn't mean there will be lines of people outside his house or getting his address. That means that private companies will have to corrugate all the items that people want signed, bring it to him for signings, and then they will have to redistribute that back to the fans.
Yeah,
Right.
well, at least he's doing that. I mean, the man is in his mid-90s.
Well, he's in his mid-90s, and as we've talked about on this show, because of the poison personalities that were near him until recently, his finances have been, if not depleted, severely strained.
right. Poor guy.
You know,
Well, he's
and
still getting $1 million a year from Marvel.
I'm sad that this is happening, only because that lowers the accessibility of a very important figure in comics. But at the same time, dude is 95 years old.
I
Yeah.
got to meet him. I got to
Me
meet him in
too.
2010.
I got to meet him. What, about 3 years ago?
He
I met him
walked
2 years ago. I got
he
a photo
walked
with him.
past me to get to signing.
Yeah.
No, that's what happened to me. He walked past me in a hotel lobby while I was talking to Patton Oswalt. Name drop.
Nice.
Also announced is that a Star Trek limited series of comics from IDW is returning in 2018. They're bringing back the anthology series comic book Star Trek Waypoint.
Oh.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's basically an anthology book. In other words, it's whatever stories from whichever continuity the writers that are assigned at the time feel like producing. IDW made the announcement of the return during the Las Vegas Star Trek convention. Waypoint is a one-shot that will feature 3 short stories set in Star Trek's prime timeline. One is going to focus on the characters from the Next Generation, one is going to focus on the entire length of Star Trek history, and the third story will focus on Deep Space Nine.
Well, that's kind of yawn-worthy. Let's focus
Yeah.
on the really exciting Star Trek news, which is Patrick Stewart's return.
Yes!
How we all feel about that?
I fangirled really hard, and I clapped my
I
hands
did.
and bounced around the room.
I had about the same reaction as William Shatner saying he was coming back for Star Trek V. Too much, man. Let it go.
No way. I'm with Joe on this one. We will dance. We will dance in a circle. The celebration of Star Trek.
No,
Yes, like
besides,
little
I can't.
rabbit kangaroos.
Yeah, I can't picture Patrick Stewart doing anything other than saying very lascivious things in the middle of American Dad episodes.
Well,
Oh.
interesting thing enough, not Patrick, but Jean-Luc Picard's history was detailed in a comic book that was written by the person that's actually going to be the showrunner of this show. So I don't
Oh,
think
really?
they're I don't think they're going to deviate too far from what they were doing, which is Jean-Luc left Starfleet and became an ambassador.
Right.
And into Star Trek Online, which takes place in 2409 and 2410, he was still alive and he was still an ambassador. Which is about
Cool.
30 years. It's about 30 years after Star Trek Nemesis.
Actually, the first Waypoint anthology issues by IDW focused on the Next Generation in the Mirror Universe.
Yeah, something I think they really dropped the ball with the Mirror Universe thing on Star Trek because they didn't have any Next Generation episodes focused on it, and you didn't even see it pop up again until D Space Nine did it.
Yeah. Well, they needed something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to go back to a little bit of a comic book controversy. Well, not comic book, I guess it'd actually be pop culture, because there has been a little bit of a development that I think changes the paradigm a little. The pop culture controversy has to do with the comic book artist, which is why all this is a bit circular. You guys have seen the designs of the new She-Ra series, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It details a very thin, kind of athletic woman that some people in circles, not going to name names, but I have a feeling it's the same people who generally complain about weird things in comic books anyway. But
Right.
they're complaining that the design looks either very lesbian or very mannish. And
I've
I
heard
just
that.
I just kind of looked at the design and thought, a slim girl, whatever, and moved on with my day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But some people have said that the design looks a little too butch. Well, this goes back to Stanley Lau, the art germ, the guy who does cover art for major comic book companies and a few independents. He put together his own version of the new design of She-Ra. I think he just did it on a lark or as a project. And even Slim, I think it's kind of undeniable that he brought up a lot of the feminine touches I think were intended by the original artist.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
It is pretty.
You know, he didn't change the body style at all. It's the exact same design in the new animated series, but he just brought out a little bit more of, I guess you could say, feminine wiles in the character that is easier in a static storytelling form rather than animation.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
I like the
and-
firm, defined arms. I always thought that Wonder Woman and, She-Ra, even the original one, should, be a little more muscular.
Yeah.
And also the fact that it underplays the chest, so you don't have the comic book standard of wearing a one-piece bodysuit that goes right under the boobs and separates them completely, so you know exactly their shape.
You mean the armor you see in World of Warcraft? Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
So yeah, I mean, if you look at a woman's armor, if you're LARPing, you do that quite often. It looks like a guy's armor.
Yeah.
There's no difference.
Really, yeah.
There shouldn't be a difference, except for maybe to allow for space and shape.
And it make you all
I say
small.
this as a female LARPer who wears armor.
The other thing,
Yep, see?
the other thing I like about this image, though, is the confidence in the face, that determination that just says, "I don't know what that is down there, but I'm going to lop its head off."
Yep. Definitely a determination. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Last up in general comic news, Mark Millar and Raphael Albuquerque have announced their new creator-owned project, and it's for the Miller world. It's called Prodigy. The whole thing is about, in their universe, the world's smartest man, Edison Crane, who's also a go-to asset for governments to handle problems they can't deal with directly to lethal effect. I guess you could say, think about it as James Bond with less sex and more brains.
He's also calling it his favorite character he's ever made.
That could very well be true. I've read several of Millar's books, and I enjoy them for different reasons. I like Nemesis. I like Kick-Ass.
I love Nemesis.
He did that very Captain Marvel-style character, the one that's a boy that turned into a superhero. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, I forgot it too.
But the reason why I bring this up is not just because it's a Miller property, but because he's also doing it in conjunction with Netflix. Apparently, this series isn't just a comic book. It's also going to be a live-action series relatively soon.
Yeah.
And considering the relatively stripped-down nature of the character when it comes to special effects, this could very well fit into Netflix.
I would love for them to do a miniseries on Nemesis.
I think Nemesis was optioned as a movie a while ago, but I don't remember which company. And since then, the Millerverse properties have been spread out to a bunch of different movie companies.
For those who probably don't know about this kind of stuff, and trust me, you're not in the minority, Nemesis was Mark Millar's project of what if Batman was the Joker? Basically, take Batman, but make him the complete villain. His whole bodysuit is stark white, but he has all of Batman's abilities, resources, and intelligence.
Yeah, and instead of going out to just create crime like a supervillain, he's picking the top law enforcement officers in the world of varying branches and countries and just kind of pitting himself against them.
Yeah, I mean, he's outright villain for villain's sake.
Well, the subject of this week is Superior Iron Man Volume 1 by Marvel Comics. It details issues 1 through 5. It is the story of what happened to Iron Man after his, I guess you could say, his alignment was changed from good to evil and what he did in the subsequent months. It was written by Tom Taylor, who is currently writing X-Men Red. The artist is Yildiray Sinnar, who's going to be one of the artists on the upcoming Uncanny X-Men, I believe. Colors by Guru EFX, letters by VC Clayton Cowles. And, this was post the Axis event. And after Axis, only 3 characters retained their inverted character alignments. That was Iron Man, Havoc, and Sabretooth. Everybody else was switched back to their normal personalities by the end of the series. And I gotta admit, I wasn't sure what to think when I offered this volume up while you guys were out, but I was pleasantly surprised by where it was headed towards the end of it. Tony Stark as I don't even know about villain, but as a cutthroat venture capitalist is kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, I mean, the whole bit that Scarlet Witch did during Axis was to invert people's alignment. So,
the target was
polar
Onslaught,
opposites.
but it didn't work that way.
Yeah, and, well, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, it made Havoc a complete and utter douchebag. It made Tony a selfish capitalist, and it made Sabretooth just a flat-out fucking hero.
Yeah, well, not to mention turning Deadpool into a monk and Mystique into one of the preeminent heroes of the Marvel Universe for a little while, and a couple other things.
No, I'm talking about the heroes that survived Scarlet Witch's inversion through the shield
Okay.
that Tony threw up. The three
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Mhm.
Right now, the only person that's still inverted to this day is Sabretooth, and to a very small degree, Havoc. The evil side of Havoc still exists, but it's heavily repressed under his original personality.
Yeah. Get back into the focus, though.
Yeah, just give him some backstory.
Okay. The first issue wasn't quite what I expected, or it wasn't quite tantalizing, I would say, in this run. It was really in the second issue where it picked up. I mean, the first issue, wasn't exactly clear what kind of person Tony Stark was. They gave you a little bit of a preamble as to why he is the way he is, but then they just threw him into his new situation of, for some reason, hanging out in San Francisco, and the She-Hulk battling a new character called the Teen Abomination, which is almost precisely what you would think it is if you read Marvel Comics long enough.
Right.
You know, it's a preteen version of the Abomination that wears cargo pants.
A-Bomb.
No, A-Bomb was actually more sophisticated than this character. I mean, the Teen Abomination was much more of a rah-rah punch character. He's almost like a preteen Hulk.
Yeah.
But you started to get a flavor as to how bad this could be when Tony Stark is remote piloting his armor and uses the helmet as a cudgel to put the kid down in one big shot.
Yeah, that was
Basic-
surprising.
It was pointing out the fact that the shit was beneath his notice.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't even entertained by this.
Yeah.
And it was further detailed when he just kind of left everything for She-Hulk to clean up because he couldn't even be bothered with it, even though he technically wasn't even there. I mean, he already was putting in zero effort into stopping the kid, but he couldn't even be bothered to set his armor to help clean crap up.
Right.
No, he had other things to do, aka pool party.
Yeah. And if you're wondering how bad this character could get, you know, Tony Stark as what he is now, when he's just kind of laughing about the situation in his pool as he just closed it out, somebody asked him why he's smiling, and he apparently did this between what he calls the depravity in the spa and the last sip of this cocktail.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tony is definitely hitting the sauce again.
Yeah, it's a little terrifying, though, to think that he's running basically a man-sized nuclear warhead in a suit while he's apparently having sex with I don't know how many people.
There's a lot of people there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the pool.
A lot of people.
I wouldn't want to swim in that water.
No.
But also in issue 1 is the debut of what they call the Endosim armor, and it's been detailed by a few different companies and outlets as the most powerful armor Iron Man has ever used to date.
And
Which-
it looks cool as hell.
I love this armor so much. It's my favorite Iron Man armor of all time.
Yeah, and it's not to say it may not be outclassed eventually, but it's still known as Tony Stark's most powerful armor, regardless of what program he's operating. For those who aren't aware, the Endosim armor wasn't a simple nanite batch. It was based on enzymes from symbiotes. Think Venom and Carnage.
So
And-
I have a question. They never addressed this, and maybe they do later. Which symbiote was it?
He never detailed that, but considering who he knows, he could have been in contact with a number of them. By the time this came out, there's been at least a dozen different symbiotic characters in Marvel
I can
Comics
answer this
history.
I can actually answer this question.
Okay.
It was the Venom symbiote, and the reason
Okay.
why is because at the time that this particular issue came out, Venom was under control and contained by the U.S. government.
So he was
Gotcha.
working on Flash Thompson at the time then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. It wasn't in the comic book, and I haven't followed Venom for a while. I kind of just got back into it because my husband's reading the Edge of Venomverse.
Mm.
To be
Anyway.
honest,
Good luck
I
with
think
that.
information is unimportant. This is kind of the origin of it.
Right. Well, inquiring minds want to know. So
Hey,
anyway,
if he really
continue.
wants to read some quality Venom, read the Agent Venom series.
Yeah, that's actually on my list.
The central MacGuffin of this storyline is Extremis 3.0, who several people may know from different sources, including the comic books and Iron Man 2 and a couple other animated series. This version, though, apparently was accessible by app,
Yep.
Yeah.
which is... And instead of giving people superpowers, instead, it was more or less, I guess you could say, genetic resequencing to make people into more handsome, more powerful versions of themselves. Not superhuman, but somewhere between... Somewhere beneath athlete, but definitely above lazy person.
We don't really find out just how the thing works until, like issue 4.
Yeah, but at the same time, Tony Stark's
Right.
not going to create a bunch of superhumans he may have to fight over control of Extremis.
Right.
They're just narcissistic humans. And it's funny
Yeah.
how he starts this in California. I'm just saying that was ironic to me.
Well,
anyway.
I wouldn't call them
Oh.
narcissistic humans. I would just say that, unfortunately, when you give humans enough status and power over others, they just naturally tend to stand above them, unfortunately.
Right. Well, wasn't he in LA for this?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
Uh,
It's one of
he-
those Californian cities.
Yeah, he had put his new base of operations above Alcatraz. He apparently bought the
Yeah,
island
that
in
was
this
funny.
version.
It was funny.
And this was also the same period where Daredevil was operating out of San Francisco.
hmm
I was confused by that. I didn't know that.
That was all something that was pretty much done away with at the end of Secret Wars. They never exactly said how both heroes were operating back in New York after the end of Secret Wars and the Earth was restored, but then again, they never really said how Tony Stark was fixed after Secret Wars either. So I'm just kind of assuming
Yeah.
this was one of those soft items where Marvel decided they had made a mistake with this particular location and just said, let's just slide this back here because I don't think anyone will really notice.
I'm sure somebody will write about it.
Yeah, but the idea of Extremis basically is some kind of virus that's controlled by an app, but you have to pay to use it, and it's a reoccurring payment of $99.99 per day, which, oddly enough, I don't think is the most expensive streaming service I've ever heard of, but still. But the idea that you have to pay for it every day, and these people were... I guess you could say they weren't physically addicted, but they were very much psychologically addicted to this thing.
Right.
Yeah, he hooked him with a freebie, like
Yeah.
any drug dealer probably should.
Yeah, it was definitely modern drugs. And the whole thing just became even scarier when you realize over the course of the 5 issues how exacting of a control Tony Stark has, not just over the people that use Extremis, but the people who argue against it.
Yes, and then it goes even further to like the Big Brother thing, like what is done with your information when you put into these apps. And he even brings up, did you even read the agreement,
Yeah,
The-
the terms of service.
terms of service? Yeah.
And suddenly he was turned into a human Sentai pad.
Right, basically. No, so then I found it really terrifying that this would be an easy thing for even a modern villain to do.
Mhm.
Like in our day and age for, collecting information. So, and this is skipping ahead a little bit, but
Right.
what he does with it is not just getting people hooked on it to be full of themselves. There's another side to this that can then glean information, then to turn around and use as blackmail. So it's a double-edged sword.
Right, and by issue 2, we find out that some of Daredevil's fears regarding people using Extremis are realized. Not necessarily. I mean, part of it is the mob mentality of we're beautiful, these people are not, therefore we should get rid of them.
Right.
That's the first stepping stone. The unfortunate next part of this is there's a bunch of average people out there who are middle class and lower who can't afford Extremis every day, who will turn to petty crime to try and feed their habit. And that's part 2. That's another way it ruins lives. Part 3, unfortunately, is because of the petty crime, Tony Stark has convinced San Francisco to let him release what he calls the Iron Sights, a bunch of drones that will monitor crime in the area. Guess what? Everyone who uses Extremis and who doesn't use Extremis is safe because Tony Stark is watching all of you at every second of every day.
Creepy.
Yeah, that's when the villain really showed up.
Yeah. I mean, you can't even say that Extremis is the total plan. Extremis just pays for the plan.
Right. And that,
Yeah.
like I said, it's terrifying. It's a multi-level thing that he's using for various reasons. And then, of course, I mean, I found it interesting. One of the quips was people are finding interesting ways not to be naked.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there watching these news feeds. That's just, creepy.
Well, I mean, by the end of this storyline, I mean, it's something that just came through this conversation that really has come clear to me, is that by the end of it, Extremis is not the addictive substance that everyone is relying on. Tony Stark is.
Yeah.
He made himself indispensable to the city via Extremis, which turned to the Iron Sights, which is now under his complete protection in the entirety of the Bay Area.
Right.
So, I mean, that was scary. The run-in he had with the father during the rally where he was giving away Extremis for free. The father pulled out a gun, shot him point blank in the face, what he thought was the face, and then it turns out Tony Stark's new armor does have a faceplate on it, but he can turn it invisible because, as he puts it, he doesn't want to deny his beauty to the masses.
Yeah, the faceplate was made of graphene.
So, I mean, I was
That's
kind
all
of
I got.
amazed because it seemed like by the end of this volume, evil Tony Stark had pretty much out-Luthor'd Lex Luthor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured, that he was pretty much he's gonna win this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean we read like 5 issues, although this could have easily been contained in 4. But even the 5th one had a to be continued tacked at the very end of it.
Yeah, I think
And-
the full run of this was about 24 or 32 issues.
I think it. Pardon me. I don't think it actually went that far. I think it actually ended in the teens.
Well, I mean, what was it? I think in the middle of issue 2 here was the first confrontation between Daredevil and Tony Stark. Well, not the first confrontation, the first full confrontation between the two of them about the direction of Extremis, and the fact that Daredevil figured out that the app wasn't Extremis itself. Buying the app just sent this hypersonic trigger to the Extremis that's already in people's system because Tony Stark had put Extremis in the water supply.
Dun 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 dun.
Which is the illegal act at the bottom of this pyramid.
Right. And like I said, this had several layers to it, which, as a mastermind, my hat's off to him. But as, a concerned citizen, I'd be, wetting myself and throwing all my electronics away and going to the mountains and hiding off of the grid.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Oh.
when Daredevil kidnapped Stark and Stark got the upper hand, knocked him out, Daredevil wakes up in a bed. I was kind of amazed that Tony Stark was sitting there watching him while still wearing his armor, but he was wearing Daredevil sunglasses in this total dick bro move.
It looks like the series actually lasted about 9 issues, and it ended after Pepper Potts in the rescue armor beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, I'd read that, but unfortunately right after that was Secret Wars, and there wasn't really a firm ending to this series.
Yeah, it seems like there was obviously a change of plan at what was going on here. And that's the reason why they've never truly ended this story. They just kind of shuffled it.
Well, I don't know about change of plan. It could have been a number of things, all the way down to release dates weren't matching up, and they didn't want to keep releasing Superior Spider-Man over Secret Wars.
You mean Iron Man?
Iron, yeah.
Superior Iron Man, yeah. So
Yeah, I agree. That's probably exactly what happened. It was probably going to run for 12 issues, and
yeah.
scheduling got screwed up.
But the reveal at the end of issue 2 that not only had Tony Stark knocked out Matt Murdock, but he had given him Extremis and used it to restore his sight just because he was trying to play the devil, doing another favor to get another follower.
Right.
Yep.
And that was... Sorry?
I think the end of the next issue where Murdoch went to go see Foggy was...
Yeah, as his
That
restored
hurt.
sight was fading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That made all of this intensely personal between the two of them. I appreciated the move. But I thought the ultimate scene in all of this was towards the beginning of issue 3 when, Tony Stark told Matt Murdock that he's not playing God. All this time, he's just been playing human.
Yeah. So Tony Stark has always had an ego.
No
Always.
way!
This is it ramped up to 10. And this is why actually when you first meet Tony Stark, like first off the bat, he rubs me the wrong way.
Mhm.
And this is all of his worst traits coming out. So I'm sitting there like, grr, I hate you. Grr, I hate you. And I understand why he's this evil genius. But then it just all of the things about Tony Stark that I dislike are amplified.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tony Stark, I think, gets away with most of what he does because he has noble intentions, and 95% of the time, his whacked-out crap really works. It's that 5% when things he tries go wrong, when things get horrible. The Phoenix gets broken into 5 parts and the X-Men go insane. He ends up getting beaten by his time-lost teenage self. Things like that.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, look it up. All that happened.
One thing one thing kind of gave me a little bit of perspective because I kind of liked the snark of Tony, but I realized that he's not that far from that line.
Yeah,
when he's a good guy.
The snark of Tony Stark from Superior Iron Man to the regular really hasn't changed at all. The only difference is who's the target of that snark.
Yeah, and the intent behind his actions.
Mhm.
He could very well do all of this
Yeah.
to, cure cancer, whatever.
Well,
Use this app to actually improve people's lives.
I just love how he's just not too far away from that moral line. He just, when he's the good guy, he can actually see the line.
Well, it's like in issue 3 here when the Teen Abomination
He's actually
breaks.
my least favorite hero.
Yeah, like in issue 3 here when the Teen Abomination breaks out, immediately makes a beeline for Stark's home on Alcatraz, and Stark agrees to help him for really not much reason that I thought at the time, other than maybe he needs a convenient villain to drop something on. He says he's going to help him, but you can tell already, based on what he's done in 2 issues, he's not doing it for altruistic reasons.
No.
And, what was this? Issue 4 here is when Tony Stark debuts the Iron Sight drones and things get very dystopian. And, let me see, he's also defining lines with Teen Abomination. He keeps telling him he's going to help him, but he keeps referring to him directly as a monster.
Yeah, it's like, I've got a party going on. I don't need a monster here. I'm trying to do work. I don't need a monster looking over my shoulder.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else.
Monsters should not be seen or heard. Go downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's pretty much being an absolute jerk. And issue 4 here kind of solidified how deep this well had gone when it comes to Tony Stark and his evil intentions when he had mind-wiped Matt Murdock of the last several days.
Oh.
Yeah, when he had uncovered the plot, and because he heard the sonic.
He could hear the hypersonic
signal?
trigger for extremists from the app to whatever's in people's blood systems.
Right, so he figured everything out. He figured out that Tony had put something in the water, and he knew who he needed to contact to get him legally in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's almost monologuing to Tony, like, "Oh, you've done this, and I figured this out. I'll stop you." And he's like, "Oh, really? Okay." He's not worried at all. Then he wipes his memory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there like, "You jerk."
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even say what process he did it, but he definitely had everybody fooled. And the 5th issue here is basically about where the Teen Abomination came from. But the origins of the Teen Abomination are a little bit personal when we find out that he is the biological son of Happy Hogan, Stark's longtime friend and one of the few characters in Tony's orbit that's managed to mostly stay dead. Most of the others that have died around him have returned in one way or the other, including Bethany Cabe, for those who go deep into the Iron Man well.
Oh God, yes, I remember Cabe.
Yeah, she's currently running around the current series, Tony Stark Iron Man. She's head of security.
She was around during Demon in a Bottle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And spoilers for those who don't know, she's actually an unwilling mole right now. The Psycho Man is controlling her.
Of course.
Yeah. But, to find out that Teen Abomination is Happy Hogan's son, that surprised even me. It surprised everybody. But the scarier part about that is that Tony Stark doesn't remember the accident at Stark Industries that killed the Teen Abomination's mother. Doesn't remember talking to Happy Hogan during that day, and he can't even remember anything from that day. Goes back and checks the security tapes, and the security tapes of that day from from the Stark Corporation don't exist. Somebody has removed days of Tony Stark's timeline.
And that is where we left off at the very end of the 5 issues that we read.
Yeah, I mean,
so we have no idea.
It was a big curiosity to me, and I was really curious who was running around in the pseudo 1972 Tony Stark Iron Man armor.
Oh, I know the answer to that.
Who was it?
Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, that is an AI of Tony Stark that was recorded at a previous moment.
Oh, okay.
That's what I figured it was. I figured it was.
I guess that, but I tried to leave my mind open. There's been a number of storylines where Tony Stark is being harangued by somebody that's inhabiting an old armor of his.
It's also the same AI that was used for a lot of the
Riri Williams run.
The Civil War II.
Yeah, the Riri run.
Civil War II. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I mean, the art was enjoyable. I thought that there was just enough detail through the series and it wasn't really overpowering. I also didn't think it was too hard to figure out who was who at any given moment or what they were up to. Sometimes things can be a little bit frustrating in longer runs.
I really, really love the art in this.
I mean, actually, now that I take another look at it, the art is almost like an updated version of John Byrne's work. It doesn't rely too much on detail. It relies on very distinct facial features and a couple crosshatch lines just to add a couple of a little bit of depth to the faces for the most part. It's really simple art now that I look at it.
Yeah, it was nice and clean. I like to refer to this armor as the eye armor because it looks almost like Apple designed it.
Yeah, a lot of people refer to it that way. Although it's not very well loved in fan circles, probably because of a lack of color. But the armor also went with Tony Stark's new ego when he said it has a nice chrome finish.
Right.
And it lights up in ways that please me.
Yep.
That was just a little weird. But he always had a thing for his tech, you know?
Yeah.
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 It was chrome and white. That was the official colors for it. Chrome, white, and of course, blue lighting.
Yeah. Well, just like some people who remove the muffler on their car, you know, his armor was his new penis.
I know I was playing Marvel Superheroes Omega, which is kind of like their Diablo MMO kind of thing going on for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought they ended that.
They did. They ended it about, a little over a year and a half ago. But this armor was set to be added to the game, but the game ended before it could become available.
Oh.
Well, you want to start with a final number score, Casey?
Wow. You know, I'm going to give this thing an 8.5. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. The armor, like I said, my favorite of all time. And then I've been reading Iron Man for decades. The story was tight. You know, he wasn't a one-note villain, Stark. I mean, he still saved people because it served his ego. Everything was all about adulation and ego. He wanted to be loved, and he tried to buy that love because that's just what you do, I guess, when you're Tony Stark. I'm really glad that they didn't go full-on evil like they did with Havoc. And this last part has nothing to do with the series because, of course, we only reviewed the first 5 issues, but it did feel like it ended prematurely and it did not have a proper resolution. That being said, I love Pepper. I love the fact that throughout the entire thing, she was really trying to keep shit focused. I liked Daredevil visiting Foggy. I thought that was cool. And I did love the fast one that he pulled on the people of San Francisco, because damn, they just kept eating it, and you know your comeuppance is gonna happen if you do that kind of shit. So yeah, art was beautiful, writing was good, 8.5.
Okay, Joanna.
Okay, well, as I stated before, Iron Man is one of my least favorite heroes, but this story was very compelling. He's the same mastermind as he always was. Now he's doing evil things in really scary ways that, you know, anyone distrusts their webcam to be uncovered at night, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I personally don't like computers that have the built-in ones. Anyway, so reading this was like, oh man, that would not be hard for anyone to hack in and do, or to design software, you know, not saying they haven't already, to do these kinds of things. And then, of course, he's putting chemicals in the water. What else is he doing? What else has he affected? Is there a backup plan? So this made me want to keep reading the rest of the story arc. I want to know how he's stopped, because Tony Stark rubs me the wrong way, and I really want to see him get put down for this. He's just misogynistic and ego and just basically everything I hate about the toxic male stereotype, you know?
Okay. I didn't know you disliked me that much. Yeah.
You're not Tony Stark level. You're not on his level yet.
Okay.
So
I have to aspire.
Yeah, on his level.
Yeah, I have to work.
No, please don't. No. So that it was compelling, and the artwork was great. I love the suit. It kind of had a reminiscent of Silver Surfer. The smooth silver lines, just really, really slick looking. And I would probably give it a 7.5.
Okay. Jesse, what you got?
I give it a solid 8. I initially had some trouble with the idea of the extremist thing, not knowing what it did or how it worked. Figuring it out later, I was like, okay, kind of quelled that, but visually it's great. But I just love how this Tony Stark is not too far off from the traditional Tony Stark. So I love how close he is to that line.
Right. All right. I actually enjoyed this volume more than I thought, and I agree with what Jesse said. Evil Tony Stark is really not that different from the regular Tony Stark. His targets have simply changed. You know, I even enjoyed the 5th issue with a conversation between Stark and the Teen Abomination when he's telling the story about how he was fighting the Dark Llama, and then this kid looks up and says, "How did a llama beat you? I mean, it has hooves. How did it hold the orb?"
That was great.
The main storyline, though, about Stark's systematic takeover of San Francisco was truly scary because, as some people pointed out earlier in the show, we already live in an era where people are debating security versus privacy, and this was an extension of that. You know, almost 3 years prior to a lot of the conversations we're having about it today, really. And, you know, I am disappointed by the lack of a definitive finish for this, and as we said, we know that it didn't finish properly. We just can't say necessarily why, if it was poor readership or it just didn't match up with the release schedule at the time and it was easier to just cut it off than try to explain it later. The art was very solid. It's the kind of thing that would appeal to both new readers and really people who like to read throwback type stuff or read old issues. I would have to give it a solid 8. If it had a real finish, I would say it's a 9, but without that, you know, you read a story and you really never get to finish it, and that's unfortunate. All right, does anybody have any suggestions for what to read after next weekend? And I say that because I know we're not going to be available while Joanna goes to Power Morphicon. We agreed to this break early on.
I have an idea.
Okay.
And I figure a nice departure from what we just read, which is, of course, a Marvel Iron Man title. Let's get weird. Let's get DC. Let's get esoteric. And I'm going to suggest Shade the Changing Woman.
Okay. Based on
reading it, it seems like it'd be interesting. It's trippy as hell. It's got kind of a weird Doctor Strange kind of feel to it, a simplistic art style that makes me reminiscent of the Ecstatics.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a different kind of art style, and I think it'd be interesting for us to go off path a little.
All right. I don't have any problem with that. And hopefully I'll still be able to read it after I get another weekend of having my head drilled into a mat, but that's a whole different thing.
Well, the 6th issue just came out this week, so we can read the first 4, we can read the first 6. It's up to you.
I'll have to do some flipping and find out where the first story arc comes to a conclusion. But
Okay.
I'm okay with that. So, yeah, next weekend we have a break because Joanna's out at Power Morphicon and she agreed to start to relay information while she's there about whatever she learns about the Power Rangers comic books. Meanwhile, let's see, this weekend I have to go to Anime California for a Mario performance. And then I have to go to Anaheim, California to cut some videos, and I don't know, maybe I'll stalk Joanna and her husband and say you need to give me a proper thank you for Comic-Con exclusives and stuff. All right.
Sounds fun.
Okay, so we got a little bit of a break. Then we will be back, not this coming weekend, but the weekend after. Thank you very much for tuning in, and, you know, hopefully we'll get all those tickets sorted out. Have a great one. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
She was Joanna. She's sure of it. I'm Casey.
And Jesse.
Thank you very much. Enjoy, everybody.